Any great fast bowler should have some amount of aggression. Fast bowling is hard work, believe me. You have to be aggressive. You've got to let batsmen know that no matter what, I'm not going to go away. You're going to get under the skin. Cricket is a tough game. You got to wear batsmen down. Not too many batsmen can really stop me when I'm in a zone. When I'm in that zone, it's like I'm unstoppable.
He was terrifying.
A wonderful bowler.
It just wore you down and not giving you scoring opportunities. Asking big questions every single ball.
It was at you the whole time. At you the whole time.
Mentally, it could be quite draining.
Horrible to face because he couldn't score runs.
He was relentless. He hit the mark every time. He was phenomenal.
He's just got a 6th and 7th gear, hasn't he, Curtly? If he wants to turn it on, he can be very difficult customer to face.
Every time that you think that chips are down and we're struggling, you would produce a very special spell.
My chest was a tad sore for quite some time, with a few bruises.
He never said anything. That was probably the most intimidating fact about him.
Serious, didn't say much, quiet assassin.
One of the highlights of my career, taking Curtly on and having that confrontation against probably the guy I respected most in any opposition team.
Easily the greatest bowler, Curtly Ambrose, that I faced.
We played every sport possible. Football, basketball, cricket. But for me, my passion was always to become a basketball player or a footballer. Cricket was never really on the agenda.
You have more opportunity of playing cricket in the West Indies, and Curtly is a typical example of that. If he had gotten the opportunity, probably would have gone to play basketball.
It was my mother who was a cricket fanatic.
She sort of coaxed him into doing it because she wanted one of her sons to be a cricketer.
My mother continued to pressure me to play cricket. So I thought I'll give it a go.
To satisfy his mother, he started to play cricket, and I'm happy he did.
In 1984, I started playing club cricket for a small village in Antigua called Sweets. In 1985, I was selected for the Antigua national team. And a year later, in 1986, I was on the Leeward Islands team. And 2 years later, in 1988, I was in the West Indies team. So within 4 short years of not wanting to play cricket, I suddenly found myself an international cricketer.
Although a new member of the squad, Curtly Ambrose was already acquainted with some of his teammates, not least the man to whom he would become inextricably linked over the next 12 years.
The first time I saw him was in England, and I remember we were on tour and he came to watch us in the nets, and Viv said, "That's a fellow who doesn't like the game, but he's not a bad bowler." And we all chuckled and laughed.
Courtney made his debut back in 1984, so he had 4 years ahead of me.
He created havoc, did extremely well, and got into the West Indies team straight away. So he had a quicker path into the West Indies team than I did.
I used to share the new ball with either Malcolm Marshall or Patrick Patterson or Ian Bishop.
We struck up a friendship from the first time we met.
We were roommates in Pakistan, and that's when we get to know each other a lot more. And our friendship just got stronger and stronger, and then we became bowling partners.
We figure whatever the selectors do is what we think is best for West Indies cricket, so we're just going to work along with that.
Even though we became friends and he became my captain, he always reminded me that I'm the senior bowler here, you know? Courtney and I are more than just teammates and friends, we're like brothers.
Ambrose was included in the 1988 tour of England. The press took one look at the 6'8" Ambrose and instantly declared him the successor to Joel Garner.
He fell in the same mold that we did. He was steady, consistent, and he was able to bowl a length that was nagging to most batsmen, so it was easy for him.
Everyone was saying a new Garners arrive and stuff like that, and that in itself would put you under pressure because, I mean, Joel is some big boots to fill.
Ambrose made a significant impact. His 7 wickets at Headingley gave the West Indies a 3-0 lead, and with that, the series.
The 7 wicket all gave him the confidence to know that he's part of the team. The guys embraced him well, and his personal confidence level went up.
I had a good series. I took 22 wickets, second to the late great Malcolm Marshall, who took 35. I mean, he was up best bowler in the world at the time. So, yeah, for me, it was satisfying.
Came from nowhere. Nobody expected him. All of a sudden, there's this Curtly Ambrose. Everyone said, who is this?
Ambrose took 26 wickets in the winter tour to Australia, but only took 5 in the '89 spring series against India. For someone who had only known success since taking the game seriously just 5 years earlier, it was a shock, and he was dropped for England's return in 1990.
The series didn't start well for me. I missed the first test, wasn't selected, we lost. The second test was in Guyana, and the same team that played in Jamaica was selected. However, Malcolm Marshall sustained an injury, and that's when they called me into the squad. And to be quite honest, I didn't want to go. A very good friend of mine, Hugo, who's an Antiguan, he's like a mentor to me, convinced me to go and prove them wrong. That's when I started to say, you know what, let me take this cricket seriously. Forget about the basketball thing, make a career of it, and prove to the world that Curtly Ambrose can be a force to be reckoned with.
In the 4th test in Barbados, with the West Indies 1-0 down, Ambrose was simply sensational, blowing England away with 8 wickets in the second innings for a 164-run victory.
He's gone. He's back before. Ambrose strikes again.
We had to win this game in Barbados to level the series and then move on to Antigua. Jack Russell, very stubborn cricketer, he was holding us up for a while, couldn't get him out. Viv took the second new ball and gave it to me. And then that was it. Once we moved Jack Russell, there was no stopping us. I got 8-45, won the game.
It's over. The West Indies have won by 164 runs.
Despite missing the first 2 tests, Ambrose was named Player of the Series, and his status as one of the Caribbean's most important players was assured. 2 years later, again in Barbados, the West Indies faced a South Africa side, just returning to the world stage after a lengthy ban. In the second innings, South Africa needed just 201 to win. Ambrose took 2 early wickets, but at the close of play, South Africa stood at 122 for 2.
There was a boat cruise that was put on by the association here, well, the West Indies Cricket Board, basically, for both teams.
There were champagnes that were being popped, and some locals were indulging as well and saying, well, you guys have come back in the test cricket with a bang. And then I look at Curtly and say, but this game is not over yet.
A bunch of rookies can't afford to be the best team in the world. So we were really focused to not lose this game.
But I remember Curtly and I were saying that the only way this test match can be won is if both of us bowl well.
Desmond Haynes saying in the meeting that no matter what happened, Ambrose and Walsh have to bowl until the end of the game. If we're going to win, we're going to win with Ambrose and Walsh.
Well, he's caught. He's caught, quite brilliantly caught by Brian Lara. Is he caught behind? He's been given out. And this is another wicket down. And he's out. Kirsten's gone. He's caught. Oh, and now Merrick Pringle is bowled by Ambrose.
Ambrose finished with 6 for 34, Walsh 4 for 31. They took the final 8 wickets for the loss of only 26 runs. Ambrose and Walsh were undoubtedly the most dangerous West Indies bowling partnership since Holding and Roberts.
First of all, I think there was a lot of skill, to be blunt. I mean, they were very skillful performers.
You would see that in one innings, one would get 5, the next innings, the other would get 5, and it was like they were always pushing each other.
Curtly Ambrose, magnificent, horrible to face because he couldn't score runs, but his partner in crime, Courtney Walsh, he bowled wide of the stumps and he was fierce and grumpy, and he was horrible to face because some were on the leg stump, some were on the off stump, some were at your head, some were Yorkers, they were all over the place.
Walsh, he always took the ball away from us, so I always felt quite comfortable kind of like leaving him. Curtly would stand the ball bolt upright in his seam. You'd always be thinking that you could leave the ball, but the ball would inevitably start to come back into the stumps as well. And that was hard work, you know. It was just, you just had to be on all the time.
When you've got them both coming at both ends, the batsman just can't get away from it, and then that, you know, the pressure is maintained.
Curtly Ambrose's aggression and accuracy made him one of the most fearsome bowlers on the planet. However, in a World Series final in Sydney in 1993, one man fancied his chances.
If you follow my career, everyone knows I've always worn 2 wristbands and a rag in my waist. The wristbands to mop my forehead, because I sweat a lot, and the rag in my trousers waist is to dry my fingers, you know? So I've always done that, part of my attire. And that particular one-day game, Dean just came out to bat, didn't face the delivery, and asked the umpire to ask me to remove my wristbands, which I thought was a strange request. And of course, I wasn't going to do it. I said, no, you can't ask me that. This is not something new. I've done it all in my career. Why?
I think Dean was trying to have reverse psychology to try to upset Curtis, to throw him off his line and his length, because he was having a very good one-day series, bowling extremely well.
A few of the teammates, they said to me, well, you know, big fella, I understand, you know, your strange request, but for the sake of the game, and I was adamant, I said, I'm not going to take it off. I prefer to stop bowling. Forget it. You know, and I was really upset.
Kurt at first thought Dean was joking, so he says to the umpire, are you serious? And Kurt would look at Dean, and Dean says, yeah. And he sort of took it off. But from the start to take it off, you knew that something was going to happen.
I was at the other end. It was wonderful. Curtly he wasn't quite on song that night in Sydney, but then Dino decided in his own irrepressible manner that he would try and steer things up.
In the spirit of the game, I took them off, and I was furious. And I thought, well, Dean just is in trouble. You know, and right away I started bowling a lot quicker. I really wanted to knock him out. Yeah.
All the rest of Australian batsmen regretted that, because he went up a notch, moving from military medium to bowling express pace, and the rest was history.
I was so furious, you know, and Australia lost quite easily. I understand the Australian just weren't too happy with Mr. Dean Jones, you know, so you shouldn't have rattled a big fella like that.
That just fired him up, which we didn't really want. So it was a very big thank you from everyone to Dino for blowing the whole game up for everyone else.
It was one of the most enthralling spell of fast bowling you could see in a one-day contest. Literally unplayable.
Slow ball, too good.
I took 5.32. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't know. We did an over or so, and he quietly said to me, you know, if you want to put them back on, you can, because he realized the fire in my eyes, you know.
Curtly is very interested in Dean Jones' welfare at the moment.
But I ignored him. I didn't put them back on because the damage was already done, and he already rattled me, and there's no getting away from this.
Curtly did, he all of a sudden found 2 or 3 yards somewhere in pace, started bowling really well, and put a totally different complexion on the game. Cheers, Dean.
I didn't get him out, though. I didn't get him out.
When the West Indies played Australia in 92-93, they were facing a team determined not to lose. Captain Alan Border had never beaten the West Indies, and doing so was his holy grail. By the time they reached Adelaide, Australia were 1 up with 2 to play.
We'd copped a fair shellacking over the years, so you know, we had ourselves in this position where we had a chance to actually beat them.
It was a fantastic game. Could have gone either way, and that was a 4th test match. A game that we had to win.
We hadn't played brilliantly in this Adelaide test match, but we